broadcasting live from an undisclosed location in the universe. Welcome to Iggy Garcia Live, the show where metaphysics, holistic living, motivation, and inspiration come together to empower your mind, body, and soul. We will dive deep into the realms of metaphysical wisdom, exploring the fascinating connections between mind and matter. Get ready to ignite your inner spark and embrace a journey of self-discovery. So, sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride.
What's up, everybody? Iggy here. Welcome to Iggy Garcia Live, the mind of Iggy. Wanted to give you guys a little moment to settle in. So those of you who've never been on one of my shows, this is actually going to do a live stream here on TikTok. I don't think I've ever done one on TikTok, but before I start every show, I burn a little sage, a little palo santo, just giving thanks to my ancestors, just clear the space, clear the area, move off, and ward off all the things that no longer serve me in this moment. Do a little cleansing. Alright, I love that smell, Palo Santo. And then I also light a candle. It's a gift from my friend Jeremy. I light a candle just to honor and respect and remember my ancestors and all that they've given. I don't think there's very few shows that I don't do this, but I think it's super important to remember those that came before us and shared with us and gave us the opportunity that we have today. So, in remembrance of them and all that they gave and all that they sacrificed, I give thanks to my ancestors. I thank you, ancestors, for all that you gave to us in my lineage, my line, my family, and all things that were important to you to pass on to us, and for us also to do better and to improve every generation after that. It's good to be here. Es bueno estar aquí. I give thanks to my mom, my dad, my grandparents, my great-grandparents, and my great-great-grandparents, and everybody who just laid the foundation for me. Let that burn there. Let that go there. So I got my claves here. The reason I pull those out is because, we've been riding this this wave right now. This wave is humanity just trying to go through its cycles and go through its things. And, it's been comfortable and uncomfortable situation, and for a lot of people, it's these times are really difficult for some. But I'm here to remind you that, it's really not as difficult as you think it is. I think a lot of it is us making it more difficult than what it really is. And sometimes we create the environments that we see before us. And sometimes they work out for us, sometimes they don't. But regardless, it's happening and it's going on. So what I wanted to share today was just about a little bit about, what I just witnessed in the last several months and, in things that have played out. For example, like we have this situation. For some people, it's a situation. For me, it was like, hey, it's great. Diversity. We're growing. We're expanding. We're seeing the world differently. But some people didn't see it that way. Some people saw this halftime show by Bad Bunny, and they were like totally mortified, about it. I don't know why they were mortified. But there was a lot of misinformation. There was a lot of stuff that was not said properly. Bad Bunny can be racy. He has his racy content. And of course, a lot of people do. A lot of musicians do. And that's how they make their money. But in this particular case, what I witnessed and what I saw was a connection to my heritage. Even though I'm not Puerto Rican, I'm Peruvian. But I'm still have that influence and that flux, the American, the flow of energy being Hispanic, Latino, words that I don't really like to use because those are from the colonizers. Those are people who colonized this part of the world and came here and did the things they did in order for their success and for their ways of making their lives better. And we were kind of in the way. Indigenous people in that time were kind of in the way. How do you get rid of indigenous people? Well, unfortunately, bad things happen, and bad things did happen. But we're here today. We're in 2026, so I'm not trying to lose sight of that. But music doesn't need translation, man, and that's the crux of my show today. Is that music doesn't need translation, and there's a lot of music you listen to you don't understand or it doesn't need any translation. You just move to it. There are music that has energy, it has vibration, it has vibes, and you feel it, and you know what? It moves you, or it doesn't move you. And the music sometimes that you listen to, and the music that maybe you heard in the halftime show, you didn't like it. That's okay. It's not like the end of the world. It's not like it's over. But you saw the whole demographic. You saw the whole group of people, how they all reacted to it. And in my house, we were like, hey, that was great. That was awesome. That was a great show. It was a good performance. But there was a history behind what was played out. And what was played out is somebody who's just very proud of their heritage, very proud of where they came from. And, America is, if you want to call Puerto Rico America, the Puerto Ricans have a right to share what they feel, what is part of America to them, even though that in their assimilation into the United States, was through, the Spanish-American War. And here they are, and now they're part of us, regardless if we like it or not. And sometimes people don't like country music. Sometimes people don't like rock and roll. Some people don't like R&B or hip hop. But yeah, we put up with it. We listen and we go, you know what? I get it. But to be like this is terrible, sure, maybe it was terrible for you. But it wasn't terrible for everybody else. It was terrible for the people who didn't like that kind of music and didn't understand it. The Latin rhythm, the Latin vibe, there's a lot of historical background with that, where that comes from. And to be angry and upset because you didn't like it and because it wasn't American, yeah, I'm sorry, but it is American. It was America. Puerto Rico is America. Okay, regardless if you like it or not, Hawaii is America. No matter what, if you like it or not. 2 islands that were taken over, right, over time. Taken in ways that we can't even imagine. We can't even fathom how this happened, but it did happen. It happened in a time that we weren't around. We weren't born. And many of our grandparents, weren't born either. Definitely our parents were not born. But a lot of this stuff happens. And it has happened through history. And there's a historical context behind everything that we see. But what happens is we only live from the focal point of the present moment, which is okay. You should be in the present moment. But being here, we also got to understand there's a lot of stuff happened back here behind us, that bring us to this present moment in time where we're at today, like why we're here. And for many people, we like to do this. See no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. And I understand. But for me, music is music. Either you dig it or you don't. And some of you didn't dig it, and that's okay. And some of you digged it, and that's okay too. It doesn't make it right or wrong. But I'm glad to see the NFL stepped out of their comfort zone. I'm glad the NFL said, hey, I'm going to do something. We're going to do something different. It could backfire on us. It could be something that will increase, our viewership, or it may not do anything. I don't think Bad Bunny is going to affect the viewership of the NFL. People who are passionate about their teams are still going to watch their teams and one of the things that I'm just curious about is how you feel about what you saw and how you experienced it. If you even watched it, if you even cared. And if you watched the other one, the Turning Point show, and you liked it, I watched it the next day. If you like country music and you like that kind of music, then it's yours. Enjoy it, embrace it. I didn't dislike it, but I was connected to, in the moment where I was with the people who I know. I'm Hispanic, Latino, whatever you want to call me. I'm Peruvian. naturalized citizen of the United States of America. United States of America is my country. I love Peru, but this is where I live, and this is where I reside, and this is what I fight for. I fight for the rights of people. I fight for my rights, the rights to be able to speak my voice and not feel like I can't say anything. And regardless if people agree or disagree with me, that's their right too. It's their right to agree or disagree. And the cool thing about being here, this platform has changed. This platform now is owned by the United States government, right? Or entities within the United States government, so things have evolved here. We moved into a new position. And so now, I'm thinking to myself, we're going through this flux right now. And every generation has gone through their flux. Every generation has gone through their pandemics. They've gone through their discords, their antisocial and social battles, and here we are. Today, here we are now. How do we live today? How do we get along? How do you get along with everybody? You get along the best you can. You can't expect people to be a certain way because you're a certain way. You have to meet people almost where they're at. You can't go outside the parameters of trying to change people. People will change if they want to change. If they feel like in their heart that they need to move into the spaces to come with you, they will. And the ones that don't, you just love them from afar. You say, hey, you know what? I love you from afar, and good job. Do what you want. But we come to this place where everything has to be absolutes. And the world's not about absolutes. The only thing that's absolute in this world that I know of, that I'm aware of, is that the sun rises in the morning and sets in the evening, and it's dark at night because the sun hasn't arrived here, because there's not enough sun, there's not light traveling through space yet to keep it daylight every day. But everything has its purpose, everything has its place, everything has all the different connotations of what it means to be a human being. To be human is to be flawed. There's perfection and imperfection. We have perfection and we're imperfect at the same time. So everybody has their place, everybody has their moment, everybody has their time to be who they need to be and how they're going to be. Now, I'm not here to try to change you or make you think differently. I just want you to think about things that, you know what, it's okay to have your thoughts. It's okay to have my thoughts. It's okay to, understand that people aren't going to think like you. What's not okay is harming other people for having those thoughts and having those ideas and having those beliefs and hurting them physically, spiritually, and emotionally. I don't agree with that. That's just my place. That's where I'm at. And I want to say hi to everybody who's been saying hello to me, and I appreciate you guys coming in. If there's something you want to talk about, something you want to share, let me know. Right now, this is just about what music does for you. I want to know what music does for you. Let me know how it moves you and it embraces you and translates inside your body, spiritually, physically. Not everybody's a dancer, not everybody's a singer, but people like music. We all have a common connection that music moves us, that music brings us all together in some way or another. It doesn't matter if it's country, rock, punk, Latino, Hispanic, a Peruvian, and Andean music. It doesn't matter, bluegrass, you name it. There's all kinds of genres out there for everybody. And the same way we have genres, we're all same and unique in our own right, in our own way. And that's something that we have to embrace. That we're all unique, we're all different. Even the people who align themselves left or right or center or wherever you align yourself with, you're all still unique within that uniqueness of that alignment. You're not just like some clone. You are unique in your own position, even when you believe something. Even if you believe it to this tilt, this is the way it is. Now, there's a lot of people who inundate you with a lot of information, a lot of stuff. So whatever I say, whatever I'm talking about, if you agree with it, fine. If you don't, then you just move on. We don't have to have a combative battle about why to prove and defend why Iggy's right or wrong. Because this is not why I'm on these shows. This isn't why I do my podcast, to prove and defend. I'm here to be able to expand and open up our minds and see what kind of dialogue can we have? Where can we grow? How can we grow? What can we do differently? I know that not everybody's going to like me. A lot of people are going to like me just because of who I am. A lot of people are not going to like me because of what I say. A lot of people won't like me just because they don't like me. And that's okay. That's all right, man. This is not a problem. Now, I can't say I'm like that with other people, but there are people like that because they've made themselves known to me and to my family. Iggy rides that fence pretty good. And I ride the fence. You know why I ride this fence? And I ride in the middle? I ride in the middle because I can learn. I can see my friends here, and I can see my friends here, and I can see my friends here. And if I want to go here, I can, and still be in alignment with what I believe. And I don't have to believe everything, left or right or middle. I incorporate into my spirit, into my being, into my soul, the things that are important to me, the things that I value, the things that I think that would benefit my life, my friends, my family, and my spirit and my soul. I mean, there are people who are very passionate about what they see and how they see it and how it affects them. And rightfully so, and they have every right to feel that way. I'm never going to discount somebody to feel a certain way about how they feel. But you know what? We can't put the blame on just everything and everyone. Sometimes we need to take responsibility for what we want to see change in the world. And understand that even though if we take the responsibility and we want to see change in the world, it's more about the change that happens inside of us. Not so much what happens externally. It's what happens internally as you progress and push forward into these ideologies and these beliefs about what you see and what you feel. Because for many of us, we don't have the proper programming of what we see. We've only learned from our parents. We've only learned from our grandparents. We've only learned from the people we've been around. In my country, we have an old saying. If you have 4 drunk friends, eventually you become the 5th drunk if you stay with them long enough. If you have 4 friends who are into drugs, eventually you could possibly become the 5th drug addict. And so on and so on. Just add on whatever you want. The same way with positivity. If you hang around positive people, you have 4 friends who are positive, and their mindsets are really good in a good way, eventually you become the 5th positive person in that organization, in that group. And all of you coexist together. So where you put your energies and who you align with is super important. Because when you align yourself with like-minded people, you get like-minded ideas in creation. And you grow into those directions. So make sure that when you're moving in directions with people's energies, that there's flexibility for you to grow or to separate and not feel like if you leave them, that it's going to be a problem. You never compromise yourself to be part of the group. Never. You don't do that, because then you're not really you're not really yourself. You're assimilated into it. The thing is, we don't want to be assimilated. We want to be participants. We want to be part of it. Assimilation means we want to be rubbed in and created. And that's, I don't know. This is just my mind working. I want to be able to be flexible to say, hey, you know what? I don't agree with that. Even though, everybody's on board with that. This is why I don't agree. And some people, they shut you down. No. It's this way. If you're not on with us, you're not part of us, you're not with us, you're against us, you're this way and you're that way. You see a lot of that right now. You see a lot of that on both sides, 3 sides, 4 sides, on every side. You see people like that. Especially in sports, it's like that. It's very common in sports. Oh, you're not a Browns fan? Oh, come on, man. Why are you a Browns fan? They keep losing. I'm a Browns fan. Well, we lose this because we believe the potential that eventually we may do better the next day. But eventually, we realize, right now is not a good place to be, so we step away. We step away from watching the games. We step away from being. And all of a sudden, they're having a great season. And all of a sudden, you come back and everyone's like, oh, you're just a bandwagoner. You just jumped on because they're winning. No, it's just, why am I a bandwagoner? Because now I just stepped away to give myself a little clarity and not to be so obsessive. And it's the same way with politics is the same way. We become very obsessive with what we're doing. Now I'm here to tell you, this is my perception, this is my view, this is the mind of Iggy, and this is my thoughts. The government's not here to help you. No one in the government's here to help you. They help you because they want to help themselves to keep themselves a job. Listen, they play in a whole different field. They play in a whole different game. Listen, it's just like they're a professional team. They're like the pros in the NBA, and then we're kind of like middle school basketball, and they're like professional basketball. Yeah, they're human beings, and but they're in a whole different club. They're in a whole different arena. They're in a whole different indoctrination, a whole different belief system. And we're down here trying to figure it out, how to move to high school, maybe get to college. But most of us stay in middle school, high school, and that's where we stay with our beliefs. And then up here, they're going, it's okay. They'll bite, they'll eat, they'll take what we give them. And that's true. I really firmly believe that. You can just walk into the store. Well, there's 10 companies that control the food distribution of the world. You walk in, you turn over these these ingredient boxes and some of the things you buy. You have 4 options. You pick all 4 options. There's probably 1 or 2 ingredients difference between them, but the majority of them, they all have this similar stuff in them. You really got to do work, and you really got to do research. And you know what? And it's not also very feasible to just grow things every day, because depending on what zones you live in the country, you can't grow everything every day unless you're growing things indoors. And sometimes that's not the ideal situation for people. But like last year, I watched people who I know who've had farms, and they would give their food, the excess to these different outlets, and they wouldn't take their food, man. And I'm going, why wouldn't they take their food? It's because they didn't get the grant or the money or the position or how to move it. And I'm asking myself, and these companies and these organizations pull in a lot of money, millions, not thousands, millions of dollars in grant money to feed people, and yet we have food rotting on some of the farms here in the United States, and some local people who have farms. It's insane. I'm like, I'm not trying to deter people from giving. It's just kind of like your garbage, right? I just found out the other day is that if you put your recycle bin out, half the stuff that you recycle don't even go to the recycling center. It goes to the dump, because we have so much stuff. We use so much that we don't even know what to do with this stuff. I always joke around. I always tell people the Native American mounds, where you see the indigenous people's burial sites or artisan stuff that's been buried there. Ours is just the landfills down the road. Those huge mounds with with pipes coming out of the ground and the methane burning out of it. That's our historical lineage. That's our story for future generations when we're no longer here, to open and go, what would these people like? Oh wow, there's a refrigerator here. Oh wow, there's a carcass of a dead one. Because remember, the deeper you go, and things don't break down and rot the same way, and they don't decompose the same way. There's gonna be a lot of plastic in there, and there's going to be a time where we won't be who we are. We won't exist the way we see ourselves today. It just won't. We won't be. It's just not that. It's just not. We evolve. We change. We become different, and sometimes we can become extinct. Don't think that we can't become extinct like the dinosaurs. That a big meteor might hit us, in the near future and wipe us all out. And then what? Who knows what happens then? Because we won't be around to tell the story, right? But it's just interesting. I find it fascinating where we put our energies and where we put our vibrational strength into things. And sometimes it's about being here now in the moment. It's not so much about thinking about what's going to happen tomorrow, because eventually once you're in the moment, you're already in tomorrow. You're already moving there. So you're flowing. So it's constant flow in the present moment is what's very valuable and very powerful. That's where we have to work. Understanding that here, in whatever we connect with spiritually, is valuable. You can believe in God, and you can believe in nothing, which is everything. So you have to believe in everything if you don't believe in anything. So you have to believe that nothing is nothing, that there's everything. And then you can believe in a creator that created you and then creating a space for you. But I'm not here to talk to you about your religious beliefs. I'm here just to say, hey, you know what? Be present for yourself. Be open for yourself. Because regardless if we're right or wrong, we'll find out eventually, right? When we die and when we move on. But I love to share this story because in the middle, we're, on the outside, we're born, coming in. And then at the end game, we leave and we die. But everything in here, that goo, that gooey nougat in the middle, is for us to either entrap or to mold or to recreate, to experience in our own way. But for many of us, we just go through life and just go through the moments and waiting for the next day and next day. I'll do it tomorrow. But there's so much we can do in the present moment. There's so much that we can accomplish and so many things we can see. Even if you're dirt poor, even if you're super rich, there's so much we can do. And you know what? I always hear people saying, well, if I had the money, I would do this. Well, what would you do if you didn't have the money? What kind of life would you have if you didn't have cash? What would you do different? What could you do that's free? Would you go to the park? Would you get off the TV? Would you stop playing video games? So there's a lot of things that you got to ask yourself. Right now we're asking all the tough questions, right? So everybody who's on the Epstein files, all of a sudden, everybody's a bad guy, right? Everybody who's on there is a bad guy. No matter if you were there or not there, if your name's there or your picture's there, you're a bad guy, right? You're guilty by association. Oh my God, how many of us have been guilty by association? But that's where we're at. That's what's happening right now. And that stuff is really some crazy stuff. I looked at some of it, but there's millions and millions and millions and millions of documents. You specifically have to be looking for something, and you have to be specifically targeting things that you want to see. And you know what? And if that's what you're looking for, then that's where you're residing. That's where your mind's at. That's where your feelings are. Your emotions are at. So I had to stop. I had hey, listen, why am I even looking at this? What's the point of this? Sure, people were hurt, people were abused, and people were violated. And I'm not discounting that. That's not what I'm talking about. But what I'm talking about is what we're specifically looking for. Ask yourself, if you looked at the files, what are you looking for? What were you looking for? Oh, okay, Bill Gates. He never went to the island, according to him, right? We have no proof of that. There's like 3 million photos, And so now all of a sudden, Bill Gates is a bad guy, right? Maybe he is, maybe he's not. I don't know. But here's what I'm talking about. This is what I'm trying to get at. Are you using Microsoft Windows and Microsoft 11 Pro or your Xbox? Are you using LinkedIn? Are you using these processes and all these different things? And if he's guilty by association, are you guilty by association by supporting his ventures and still putting your money into that? Are you going to go take this computer right now and get a MacBook? And that's no guarantee that they have no connection to Epstein or anybody connected to them. If you go to the Express and Limited stores, are you going to stop buying bras? Are you going to go stop buying all these things? Are you going to buy the alternative? This is what's really. This is where you test your gall about who you really are and what you really think about things. If this is true and this is reality and then we should not partake and be part of that or associate to that. But for many of us, we can't afford to not have our computer. We can't afford not to be on LinkedIn because we have to keep our job or find our job. For a lot of us, we can't afford. Can you or can you not? Or can you or you not want? Where's the line? Where's that line where it's okay? Oh, it's all right. It's, because everybody has that line. Everybody has that justification why they can do or do not do things. Or why they feel like it's okay to, oh, he didn't know. Or it was before that. We get a lot of that. We get a lot of that stuff. And so I'm thinking to myself, okay. And even in the micro sense, in the micro sense of even in our personal lives, there are things that happen like that. For my example, in the drum circles, I have some guy who puts his hands on people. And, I didn't like that. They didn't like that. And we kick them out. And then I have other people who accuse people of doing certain things which aren't valid and not true. And according to their perception, it may be true and they may feel that way. But where's the line? Where do you say, okay, this is enough? I've had people tell me, I don't feel safe in your circle. I'm going, why? Because this person's in it. I said, well, why didn't you say anything? Why did you wait 6 months to tell me that something happened or that they treated you wrong? Why didn't you speak up? It's because, you know what? I don't know why they didn't speak up. I don't know what they went through. But you can't put it on me if I don't know what's happening or if I didn't know what's going on. And then if you ask me, my perception about the situation might be completely different. I didn't see them do anything. I didn't see them do anything wrong. Maybe you mistook something. Maybe you heard something differently. Maybe you just don't like that person because they're a certain way. Because I would hear this all the time. Oh, I've been around people like that all my life, and I know what they're like, and I know what they're going to do. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, you already prejudged them. So you already set up the stage and the tone to create the animosity and the discord that was going to play out with that. And that happens a lot. In life's the same way. Right now, politically, you're aligned with whatever you're aligned with, and that's okay. And I really don't want to get into politics because I think everybody's pretty clear how they feel about where they need to be and not have to convince me or any other people to know what they think because it's not going to change what we think. But I'm trying to talk about the micro. The macro, we already see how it plays out. The micro is, what are you doing in your own communities? How are you helping your community? How are you volunteering? How are you supporting other people? Do you support your homeless people in your own neighborhood? Some of you do. I know some of you. Some of you support, your family members. Some of you do. Some of you don't. Some of your family doesn't like you. I have people in my family who despise me because of my way of speaking and talking about stuff, and because I'm perceived abrasive. I am abrasive, but it doesn't make me a bad person. I just say things how I feel it needs to be heard sometimes, because some people are afraid to speak. So I speak for others who don't want to speak and don't want to share, or too afraid, or don't want to hurt someone's feelings, or just don't want to be combative. My wife's like that. She doesn't want to be combative. She doesn't want to fight people. And it's not that I want to fight people. It's that I want to have that deep conversation with you and talk with you and say, hey, what are you really feeling? What's really going on in your mind? What's really happening? Do I really want to go there? Do you really want to go in my mind? Because, in our darkest, smallest crevices of our lives, we are different. We hide and we share. We wear masks. What we present to the world is one thing, because the world forces us to present a different mask sometimes. Sometimes we can't be funny, goofy, and, spontaneous. Sometimes we have to listen. Sometimes we have to be present when something is a serious thing, when someone's talking to you. And so I'm learning to navigate those waters as well. I'm 59 years old, but I'm still navigating. I'm still learning. I'm still trying to figure it out. And I'll figure it out to the day I die. And when I'm laying in my deathbed one day, I'm going to still be figuring it out. But I'm grateful for every opportunity I've had, every situation I've gone into, and everything that's part of my life. I'm really grateful for all the things that I've been able to experience and to be part of. Because, life is one of those things that we have to cherish and say it's precious. I've had family members who've taken their own lives through suicide, and I don't know what they were thinking in that moment. And I miss them. I miss them greatly. I miss them because I'm not able to share those moments with them anymore like I wanted to. Or be able to share, something that was going on in their heart that I wasn't able to share. And then one day, I will see them again. I don't know how that works. I don't know how that is. But I do believe I'll see them again. I do believe that we'll have a reunion, and we'll all get back together and talk about the things that went on, about what other people do. It's different if I was invalid or not capable of tending to myself. That's different. But if I'm able and bodied and mind and spirit and soul to navigate, move, and walk, there's really no excuse for me not to be able to succeed and do the things I want to do in my life. They may not be grandiose and great and big, or someone's going to say, oh yeah, you did great, Can't wait for someone to pat me on the back. Sometimes I just got to pat myself on the back and say, good job, Iggy, you did good. Good job, buddy. And for me to wait for somebody else to say that for me, I'm going to keep waiting. And I don't want to wait, so I just keep moving. Like this podcast I do this podcast, I've been doing it for many years. Some of you have never seen it before because it's not in your frequency, your vibration to catch it. Today, you caught it. Do you like it? I don't know. It doesn't matter. It's where sometimes we just stream through and catch by and go, okay, who's that guy? And that's okay. He may have something important to say. He may not have something important to say. It doesn't matter. He's saying, look at that. Why is he wearing a hat? Why has he got a beard? You know? Oh, he's a handsome guy. Look at that guy. He's so handsome. Look at that. Oh, look at that painting behind me. Is he wearing a Superman shirt? You know, whatever you're thinking, you're thinking. It's just how what we do as humans. So embracing and honoring people for where they're at and how they're thinking, what they're doing, is just first do no harm. I'm a firm believer of first do no harm. Do no harm to somebody else. Just because you don't agree, because you don't, value their belief system, doesn't mean that you have the right to destroy their belief system. Some people survive just because where they're at and what they're believing. Some people believe in aliens, and some people believe in God. Some people believe, in demonic things, but I don't necessarily believe in demonic things, but the thing is, I know demonic things exist. There's a difference. But what I'm trying to say is, be cautious of how we integrate and talk to people and are with people. I know in this country, it's a very powerful statement where people want people to assimilate and be part of this country. And of course, that's what everybody wants, because we all want to be able to have a common connection. Black, white, Asian, Hispanic, doesn't matter. Gay, lesbian, doesn't matter. I know that we all want to integrate, but this theory and this idea of having a melting pot, I think, is where the problem lays, where we think that people have to assimilate and become. We're not the Borg, and I've said this before. We're not the Borg, where we just all do the same thing. We're all connected by one hive, mind hive. There's one brain. Like my friend, told me. He says, I heard this analogy of what the United States looks like and what it is. Imagine a big salad bowl, just one of those big metal bowls or a wooden bowl, empty. This is America. And then all of a sudden, indigenous people, the lettuce, the tomatoes, the cucumbers, the parsley, whatever you want to add in your salad, whatever you put in there. And they're all like stacked upon each other, right? They're all kind of like layered. And then you add the dressing, and then you toss the salad, you move it around, and then it all gets intermingled, and bathed together with the dressing, or the vinegar or the olive oil, whatever you want to use. But it all gets intermingled. But yet it still has its own personality. But it has something that's really interesting. They're all connected. They're all unified in a way that there's something that brings them all together. And what is it? It's the bowl. It's the bowl of creation. That bowl, the Mother Earth, the land. We all come here for a reason, and we all have to be part of the bowl. Some of us are tomatoes, some of us are lettuce, some of us are cucumbers, but we're all bound in by the lemon squeeze or the vinaigrette dressing or the French dressing. And you know what? We're all in this together. But yet we're all independent. We're still going to have our belief systems and our creation. But we all understand that we have to work together and figure out how we work together and not isolate ourselves from each other and become just independent, segments of America where we have our own beliefs and we don't move from that. If that's all you want to do, then you should just go back to your country. I should just go back to Peru if that's all I want to do. No, I want to be able to integrate with the black culture, Asian culture, white culture, European culture, Caucasian culture, indigenous culture. But how do we do that without offending or disrespecting other people? Is understanding that, they have their belief systems about things. And we have our belief systems about things. And how do we bring that all together? Well, the thing is, in the olden days, in the 1500s, 1400s, the idea was to wipe everybody's belief systems out and create a new belief system, and we all, become one. That didn't work. That still doesn't work. I watched the Catholic Church. What they did is they integrated indigenous traditions and beliefs, and they integrated into their ceremonies. And why they do that? Because they figured out, hey, we're killing all these people. Who's going to tend to, the land? Who's going to be, who's going to pay taxes? If we're killing everybody because they have a different way of thinking. It came to that point where it came down to money. Why are we killing the parishioners? People will change. If you want people to come to your side, violence isn't a good way to bring people to your side unless you're like really like we're fighting aliens or something that really want to take our planet. But I don't see any reason why we would go off people because they think different from us. But it does happen. It has happened. And it will happen if we don't change in the moment. We can't wait to change tomorrow. Can't wait to change later on. It has to be now. Why now? Because it's all we have. We only have the moment. I know music doesn't need translation. And some feelings and emotions about how we are as Americans doesn't need translation. We can feel. We can walk. When we walk into certain neighborhoods and we drive into certain parts of town, there's no need for translation. We just feel the vibe. We feel the energy. We know where we're at. We know what we avoid. We know what we try to stay away from. Why? Because it's different from us. Ask yourself, those of you who are advocates for other people, and some of you, and this is going to be kind of a blanket statement, but it's a statement truth because I know it from experience. I've seen other people who do this. You're an advocate for people's rights. You're an advocate for, people of minority or certain descents, but yet you live in one of the wealthiest neighborhoods because you want to feel safe. And these are comments that I've had people tell me. And I'm thinking to myself, why don't you live in their neighborhoods? Why don't you live with them? For the people that you call them, whoever them is whoever you associate with that. And they don't have an answer for me. They don't. It's funny. You won't live with the Hispanics, but you go live with the white people. But you come and tell the Hispanics how they have to live or have to be, or what's best for them. But yet you won't live with us because you're afraid of violence. You're afraid of whatever. And that is truth, facts, friends. You may agree or disagree with me, but that's true because I've witnessed that. I've seen that. Nobody's stupid. We may play stupid. We may act dumb sometimes as humans. But most humans aren't dumb. Most humans know what they're doing. Most humans know what's happening. And the excuse is that, because I live here, because I do that. No. I've watched enough in my life, and I've seen enough change in the world. And I've seen things that I'm just like, man, how do we get here? How do we get to this place? How do we teach people that? How do we empower them? How do we teach people that it's in you to be powerful, to be empowered, and not say, well, we're going to give you this, because if we don't give this, then you don't have a fair playing field. So what did you do to all the other people who also deserve a fair playing field and they didn't get it? Because you just selectively picked a certain group of people to receive it. And it's who you know, man. It's who you know, what you know, why you know. I know we're talking some really delicate stuff. Nothing needs translation. Music doesn't need translation. Politics doesn't need translation. It's pretty much where you aligned personally, spiritually, emotionally. And I think that's how we vote right now. We don't think about what a person will do for the job. What will they fight for? And you got to ask yourself, I'm a really big term limit person. I believe people should have term limits when they run for office. For president, we already have that. But for Congress and for the senatorship, they should have term limits. They should be regulated where they're not creating this little mafia. I call it a mafia because for me it's a mafia. Okay? It's organized crime in its best. Every government, if you're allowed to stay there more than you need to be. All right? President Trump don't need to be staying and running in 2028 because that's BS. And the congressional leaders, they should 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, whatever it is, and that's it. Let some new blood come in, some new energy come in. It's because we have the same crap rolling through there. It's like trying to flush your toilet and that turd just keeps floating around and rolling around in there. It doesn't matter if it's Republican or Democrat. We just keep flushing it. Oh, I don't know why it doesn't go down. Well, because you're not using a plunger, and you know what? You put too much paper in the toilet. I don't know. or it's too big. That's how politics is. Politics is the same way. It's like the toilet. You try to flush. Oh, yeah, you're trying to drain the swamp or whatever. Or you're trying to clean out. You can't. You can't if you have the same players in. You got guys who've been there since they've been there for 30 years, man. And nothing's changed. Except for their pocketbooks. In my country, if you become rich and you're in politics, there's a problem. And that's why we go through so many presidents. That's why we go through so many congressional leaders. I mean, it's one thing to make money, but not to make money off the back of people or inside information, insider trading and stuff, like things that are popping up now. We don't need translation to do this. We're not stupid. People, our government thinks we're stupid. People who are running for office think we're stupid. And I would like to see someone who ran for office tell me that what I'm saying is not true. They're never going to say that. They're never going to say, oh, but behind closed doors, and I'll tell you why I say these things. I ran for office. I ran for 15th congressional district in my state back in 2004 and 2006. You can look it up because I'm not lying. It's on the Board of Elections roll. And the first time I got disqualified, the second time I learned from the disqualification because I did things correctly. It's because of just petition stuff. A period here, a period there, disqualifies you. That's how catty it is. But I understand. And I learned. And I watched. And you know what? The Republicans and Democrats, they play like they're sworn enemies. They're not sworn enemies, man. I was in a room going, who are you running? Oh, I don't know. This is like in the board of election. Oh, who are you running this year? Oh, we're thinking about this guy. Oh, they're cutting deals all the time. That's why you don't see anybody running. They hide all the people who have skeletons in their closet. And then you're left with people who are kind of like somewhat good, I guess. Somewhat clean. But they're not really necessarily presentable to, and they don't really have good ideas. They're just in the right place at the right time. And I was in the right place at the wrong time, right time, all at the same time. I remember when Mayor Coleman, we were at a function. Yeah, Mayor Coleman, he's an official. He's a Democrat. I was a Democrat too. I'm no longer a Democrat. I'm independent now because of these things. And they're taking pictures of all the candidates and stuff. And they came up and they wanted to take a picture with me and with Mayor Coleman. And he's like, oh, yeah, sure. I kid you not. He had his arm like this, high arm. We were like, and then he just turns his head and looks the other way as they're taking the picture. Kind of like I don't know this guy. This is true. And that pissed me off. And that day, and then when I went into to plead my case why I should be a candidate for the congressional seat, I told him it's a nonpartisan election, so why are we having this conversation? The people need to decide, the primary needs to decide who's going to be voted. You can't endorse a candidate. And these are things that they were doing. They say they think you're dumb. They asked me about gerrymandering. Do you know what gerrymandering is? Of course I know what gerrymandering is. I'm running for office, man. I have to know these facts. They accused me of being a Republican. And you know what? I was a Republican. I'll tell you why I was a Republican. Because I remember when my school, they came and they registered. This is private school, so, and they had a register to vote day. And of course the candidates were there. I don't think they do anymore, but I got registered as a Republican. Not registered as a Republican, but when I voted Republican because they were the ones. They was my first influence in politics, and so that's why I had that connection. And my dad was a Republican, for many years. He worked for the government, worked for the CIA. So his connections, and you learn those things. And they called me out on that, and they said, you know what? It's because no one, it's just the Democrats were nowhere to be found and to, promote or show the way. I said, and I told them that. Yeah, I was a Republican. I'm not going to lie and pretend. Why are you running Democrat? Because I don't agree with the Republican policies and the ideas and stuff, and I don't think this lady's doing a good job. And I want to be a representative that represents the people. I have my door open. If I'm able to talk to you, I'll talk to you. If I'm not in a meeting. I was your personal representative. That was my campaign. That's how I ran. But many people didn't know that. But I learned a lot. I learned a lot about stuff. And then I told them. They looked at me like I was like some, I don't know, just like I was some kind of weird abnormality. And so I looked at them and I said, you know what the problem is, my friends, is that all you old guys right here, all you old men and women who are behind the scenes in the Democrat Party, you're the problem. It's because you don't have vision for change. I told him that, just like that, smacked him right in the face, you know. Everybody else was afraid to speak up and say anything. I wasn't running for them. I was running because I wanted to represent, like it's supposed to be. I wasn't there to make millions of dollars like these guys make millions of dollars. I was there to make a difference. Was I going to make a difference? Well, I would hope so. That was my goal. You know, but I know that it's a corrupt system. I know that people get bought. I know people get bought. I see it now. As my connection buzzes in and out every time I talk about this. You know, I watched, I watch and I learned. And it was painful because in that time I really felt like I could do something. I could really help. And what would I have been like if I had won? I don't know. I came in second in the primary, which is good for somebody who didn't have any money, hadn't had, my name was Iggy, my name was Ignacio, but the derivative of Ignacio is Iggy, so they let me run with that. And where did I learn to run for politics? My dad ran for mayor of Columbus, Ohio, and they disqualified him because he wasn't a citizen of the country. I don't even think he was a resident. I think it was illegal. But I have to check on that. But he registered to vote, and that's what caused all the deportation stuff. I think now that's coming back to me now. But in my dad's case, and you know why he said he could run for office? He said because the city of Columbus was a corporation. And corporations votes for the president of the corporation. They're not necessarily, you're not. It's not bound by the federal jurisdictions, but voting is, you have to be a citizen to vote. So I was like, and that, my dad, we had a love-hate relationship with certain things, but when I see my dad when he did that, it just inspired me to say, you know what, anything's possible. Anything's possible. If you put your mind to it, and if you really want to do it, even if you don't win, it's the experience that you garner that you just can't. You just can't. You can't say that every day. You can't just say, "Hey, I ran for office." Not very few people can say that. And I ran for office, and I thought it was an interesting ride. It was interesting. I was surprised who supported me, who didn't support me. That was the biggest thing. I found out real quickly who my friends were. I found out real quickly who my family was. I found out really quickly the people who I thought would support me or finance my campaign didn't. It was, I was landscaping at the time, so it was more important for me to be the landscaper than to be the politician. It was better for me to be cutting their grass and trimming their hedges versus being the guy who's, probably in the office somewhere. And, I learned those things, and I'm going, that's fascinating. And then when you just think you're part of the group or you think you're in there, this is what my topic is about, is some things only translate. Music doesn't need translation. I'm talking in general. I didn't need translation in that moment to know where I fit in or how I fit in or what my role was in this world and what it meant to be part of that system and what that system required of me. And that was the biggest thing I took away. Who was my biggest support? My kids were huge. As little as they were, man, they passed out flyers. They told their teachers, they were in it, man. They were in it for the long haul. They wanted to see their dad succeed. Not because they would succeed, but they saw their dad stepping out and doing something that just not everybody does. Win or lose, it didn't matter. We went in there with a winning attitude. We went in there like we were going to succeed. But you know what? The biggest support came from my family, my mom, my dad, my wife. But I watched my sibs disappear. I watched certain friends disappear. I watched longtime friends, disappear. Even they were Democrats too. This was kind of weird. But I still kept going. I still kept plugging away. I still kept moving forward. And I campaigned where I could campaign. And I won Franklin County, which is unheard of for somebody like myself, no-name guy, you know, Iggy Garcia. And, the guy eventually, the guy with the last name Brown, they threw him in the last minute. They threw this other guy in the last minute. I was the only one running. At the time, I was the only one running. They, Deborah Price, that was her name. She was the person running. I was running against her. And the only reason I ran for her is because she was kept running unopposed. Every year she ran unopposed, man. There was nobody running against her. I was like, why? How can this be possible? How can people run unopposed? You can't. That's because they didn't want to fund the campaign. They didn't want to waste money on those campaigns. They knew that they weren't going to win. That was their excuse. That's what they told me. When I went to the party and I said, hey, can you guys give me anything? They wouldn't even give me a penny. Because if you gave me a penny, that means that they would support me. And the only way they supported me is by helping me with my petitions the next time. And signing my petitions and getting them organized right. Because you know what? They know they screwed up. Because the first time when they disqualified me, I remember when we were in there and they said, no, you're disqualified because of these things on your petitions. These things that you didn't do properly. They weren't dotted right or something. To my campaign manager, Eric, and I said, okay, we're done here. Let's go. He goes like, no, we're not leaving. I said, well, why not? He goes, just stick around. You'll see. Boy, was he right. I stuck around. There was like 20, 30 people. And these people all ran for office and they all screwed up on technicalities on their petitions too. And they got affidavits and they got all these things to prove that this person signed it. And you know what? The guy from the Republican Party stuck his head out like this. And he just shook his head like, oh, the fucker's still here. I was like, what was he doing? Why did he do that? He goes, and the people were crying. Oh, I worked so hard. I campaigned. And they're like, sorry. The law's the law. The bylaws are the bylaws. And we can't let you run because Iggy's still here watching, making sure. Because if we let you run, then we got to let him run. That's basically what it boiled down to. That's why they took me first. To get me out the door. That's my belief. Is it true? I don't know. Could be. The shenanigans were going to happen regardless. I believe that. And my friend proved that to me. To stick it out. And to watch and pay attention. And these are the things I learned running for office that I would never have learned if I hadn't run for office. And the beautiful people that I met, I need no translation when I met them. I didn't need anybody to translate to me what was happening, what they were feeling. I could see it in their eyes. I could hear it in their conversations. I could hear it in their broken dialects. I could hear it in their perfect English. You know who supported me? Were businesses that didn't know me. They were outside the perimeter of, 270. I would stop in there, and the union let me talk and they helped me. They made me buy, because I was doing it myself. So they told me I had to buy union made posters. Like the union had to make them. No, I couldn't make them myself because I was making them myself. Just going to Kinko's, whatever. And so what little money I did get, I went to the union hall and I talked to the union leaders and they told me to go to the union printers, and the union printers made my signs. And this is the game. It's a game. How you play the game and who you play the game with is super important. So Bad Bunny singing, somebody knew that was going to trigger people. Of course they knew. Don't think they didn't know. Pretending and acting like, oh, it's such a surprise. Oh, I didn't know he was going to say that. I didn't know he was going to say Canada, America, Peru, Venezuela. I didn't know he was going to do that. Yeah, you did. If you did any research, and the NFL does research, the NFL's big on doing research. They knew exactly what they were doing. They knew exactly which direction they were moving. Don't be fooled. Don't be hoodwinked in the belief that this is just some random occurrence that no one knew about. Because remember, he had to practice. He had to sing these songs before they were actually broadcasting. And according to what I understand and what I learned, nothing had changed. The only thing that I saw was just a little animosity amongst other performers who he didn't invite, like Shakira and Jennifer Lopez and things like that. He had his reasons. I don't know why. Whatever's in his mind is in his mind. But you know what? They try to make us and pit us against each other. Is that a true story, not a true story? We'll never know. Because you know what? That's how the media works. It's manipulative and it's controlling. And it makes you do things and it makes you think about things a certain way. Hopefully this is, you got something out of this show today. It's good to be here. Matakuyasin. Es bueno estar aquí. Ho'oponopono. Subscribe on my YouTube channel. Okay, guys? Visit me there, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate you guys. You guys take care. Be well.